Okay, welcome everybody to the Beer and Skittles podcast. It has been quite some time. Um, I do want to let everybody know that we did have an episode planned for last week to bring us back up to date on some things, but we had a lot of technical difficulties with said episode, in which we covered X-Men 97 and the ongoing beef between Kendrick and Drake. We are still working on that episode. We're going to get that out as quickly as we can, and we'll have more to say as X-Men 97 reaches its, final episode. And I don't know if this beef between Kendrick and Drake is going to end anytime soon, so as soon as we get a chance to cover everything going on with that, we'll have that for you guys. This week, we're going to cover some movies, though.
And let me say, because in the past years, there's been a lot of discrepancies being talked about movies as of recent, saying, this is the era of blockbusters. It's like we're back in the 80s, the dark ages of movies, where nothing is creative and everything is big and budgets are crazy. And honestly, I think the tides are turning, man. I mean, obviously, we're still going to get those big blockbusters. There's a shit ton of them. They get, they get their flowers, and there's still a lot of work to be done, but we have about 5-6 movies to cover that we saw in a short span, and I don't think we really have anything bad to say about any of them, and none of them were huge blockbuster movies either.
Well, and I have to say, even with the blockbuster movies, I think what we are seeing now is that our blockbuster movies are kind of how blockbuster movies used to be. Think about it. Marvel has one movie coming out this year. That's going to be their blockbuster. That's going to be our summer movie, is Deadpool.
Mm-hmm.
We're not in the age where every movie every couple months is a blockbuster. We're kind of taking a step back, and I'm not mad at it. Also,
I think it's going to have a resurgence as well, because eventually Marvel is going to start putting out 3 projects a year again minimum.
Yes,
it's inevitable with the amount of workload they
and
have,
DC
and when DC gets on their feet running again.
Yep.
And then there's always different franchises. Like, I'm pretty sure there's another Top Gun coming out. There's other things in the comic space of movies that are going to be made and everything like that. Fast and Furious is probably going to make 30 more movies, and you'll see every one of them. So obviously there's going to be, I think, a bigger resurgence probably in 2026. But right now we're getting a lot of solid non-blockbuster movies, and it's killer. It's honestly killer, and I think it's us making our way back to getting good projects.
Well, and I think the other thing is to appreciate some of the blockbusters that are coming out this year that are smaller budget. You look at what Marvel does, what DC does, and they're such high budgets, and I'm talking astronomical. But looking at, and this is a movie that I saw, I don't know if we actually ended up talking about it, but Godzilla X Kong had a fraction of the budget that the Avengers movies have. You know what I mean? And it looks incredible.
Yeah.
Planet of the Apes that's coming out. And it is a high budget. Planet of the Apes is coming out.
It's high budget, yeah. I mean, it's a franchise too, so it's...
I just... It's the superhero stuff, right? And it's like, well, where's all this money going? It's got to be going to the stars. There's no way it's going to the production.
Yeah, well, you also have to realize the names that they have attached to them is not the same names that they have attached to Planet of the Apes. It's completely
true. That's
different
true.
in what they're doing there. And also, I mean, half of your budget is advertising.
Right.
Getting the word out about your movie. Whatever your production was, your advertising is the same amount of money. And these Marvel movies and these big blockbuster movies now, I mean, they're everywhere. I mean, people know when they're coming out, they know what's happening. So that's a big part of it too. When you have that big budget, you have to make sure people are coming to see it. So that comes into play when people always don't talk about the budget.
You know what? But I will say this. Case in point, Marvel doesn't need to do a lot of budgeting to get people to go see their movies, right?
No, they don't need to, but they still do. It's just how.
But let me tell you this. Let me tell you this. Quiet Place Day One has been running the same goddamn trailer that dropped months ago. I haven't seen a second trailer. It's the same exact fucking trailer. And I'll tell you what, I'm going to be there. I'm going to see it because I'm invested in the franchise and it looks awesome. They haven't put out a second trailer. It comes out next month. So, yeah, marketing and all of that, but it's just conflating the budgets. Planet of the Apes, I know, is going to be incredible. That movie is going to look... Just in the trailer alone, the monkeys look real. Okay, they look real. But then I watch a Marvel movie recently, and Thor: Love and Thunder gets absolutely no love from me because of how bad so much of it looks. And they had probably 3 times the fucking budget to make the movie.
Yeah, but that's not the current events right now. Maybe we'll get more into that later episodes. Maybe we'll find a way back on this topic later in the episode itself. But again, we just saw a boatload of movies in a short time. Like I said, they've been killer recently.
Yep.
So the most recent one that we both saw was Challengers, which just came out time of this recording about a week ago. And God damn, for those of you that don't know what Challengers is, it's a sports movie. Technically, it's about tennis. It's technically a sports movie.
It is.
And like the sports do come into play. But it really is. Oh my God, it's hard to explain things about this movie because I also don't want to give you guys too many
I
spoilers or
don't want to
anything.
spoil
If
it.
we
I
feel,
want to talk
if we
about
feel
this,
like we're
but I
getting
don't
into
want
it
to
too much,
spoil it.
we'll give you the warning, so that you guys know to jump ahead.
I
Um,
I do want to say too, it's funny that you say that, and it's a sports movie, and this is not too spoiler heavy. There's a one line that Zendaya has a couple of times throughout the movie that I noticed, and it's, "Are we talking about tennis still?" And she's like, "Yeah. The fuck else would we be talking about? We're always talking about tennis." Like, it is very much still a sports movie. Everything that's happening
yeah,
around them is
it's
still centered around tennis.
yes. But it's not your typical sports movie. It's not about the underdog overachieving or anything like that. The quick synopsis of this is there is 3 star tennis players in their youth. They're like juniors US Open champions. 2 guys who are doubles champions. Um, and then Zendaya, who plays basically the prodigy of female tennis. Like, think about LeBron James in high school. That is the type of attention that she has. Like
She's a young
Adidas
Venus
campaigns,
and Serena.
marketing.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Um, so they meet each other at their junior opens. The 2 boys find her attractive and want to go after her, and it becomes very much of a love triangle, love hate relationship between these 2 best friends that are vying for the same girl and the girl that doesn't really know what she wants. And they are all kind of shitty people and do sketchy things to each other. And it's a crazy drama that is insane, which I'll get into more in a second. Because they tell you the story of these people's entire knowing of each other. But the main story takes place within one tennis match.
Yeah.
Everything is focused around one tennis match, and everything else is flashback during this tennis match. So, like in the reality, you're learning about 15 years worth of drama.
I think longer. I think it's
Within,
longer than that.
I think it was 13 actually, to be specific. I
Yeah.
think it was like 13 years from the juniors to that current match. I think it was like 13 or 14 years, somewhere in that range. Because I do remember the one flashback thing. Atlanta was like 8
It was
years,
eight,
and I
eight and
think
a
the
half years
original
or
was
something
like
like that.
13 years. Yeah.
Yep.
So, and God, the way that they've compiled this story, the way that they were telling it, was just it
It
reminds you that there's levels to this shit. Like, honestly.
no, it's a testament to the director, who's incredible, and the director, he directed one of my favorite movies, which is Call Me by Your Name with Timothée Chalamet. Um, and there's so much subtext happening, and also it just goes to show too that, like, how relationships between people evolve over the years. It's not static. None of this is stagnant. These people are, I hate to say that these people are changing, because a lot of them don't. They remain the same person, but the more things change, the more they stay the same, might be a good way to phrase it. As they get older, but they're still kind of the same people at their core. Uh, Patrick is the same fucking person. He doesn't change at all.
No.
But in Zendaya, she's the same person. She just is older. She's in a different place, but she's still the same person. I would hate to say that all of them are toxic to each other and all of them are terrible people. I don't think Art really is.
Well, I think there's moments of it in his younger days. I will say he probably is the character that has the most change.
Yeah.
As he gets older and that wedge is driven between him and his best friend, he becomes more hardened. He gets a backbone. He was much of a pushover. He kind of followed in Patrick's shadow and liked to stay there. But as Zendaya gets to him more than Patrick does, you see a very hardening of his character in that line to where he sticks up for himself for that regard, but then kind of substitutes Patrick for Zendaya, where he kind of becomes her little lapdog. But he becomes, I think, a better person through that journey as you see him becoming a dad and you see him going through his tennis career, the ups, the downs, the being called washed up, the injuries, the comebacks. You see him progressing as a character while Patrick and Zendaya are kind of the same, which you're right about.
Yeah.
They pretty much are the same person. From the top to the bottom.
Can we take a second to appreciate two things? I want to first of all appreciate your sports knowledge, because any of the sporting events, I don't know what any of them are called. So you being able to recall and know exactly what you're talking about when it comes to this shit, A+. Second, I love the small little joke that I don't know whose decision it was to throw it in there, but when it's very early on in the movie when the daughter walks in and she's like, "Mommy, can we watch Spider-Verse?" I cackled at the screen. It was the perfect little fucking jab. And I loved it. It was yeah, sure. Absolutely. But the characters are just, but I think that's people, right? Like, you take young,
and I think that's the beauty
college athletes, and especially her. She already has an Adidas deal, and she's not even pro yet, and she's only starting college. And like, what do you expect these people to act like and to be like? That's the relationship with each other, and
yeah, it all gets very crazy and convoluted. Like you said, there's not too much bad to say about this movie. To get more in depth on the plot line, so you guys know what we're talking about here. So again, I'm gonna try to make sure I stay away from all spoilers on this. Maybe just give you the stuff up top that you're gonna figure out in the first couple minutes of the movie. Art is the tennis player. He's the one that I told you kind of was in the shadow before. He eventually grows up to marry Zendaya's character. She's an injured ex-prodigy in tennis. She becomes his coach.
Can we talk about that real quick before you go past that injury? Because I wasn't expecting the camera to show me the movement beneath her knee.
On that, yeah, no, it was pretty gnarly.
Oh my god, I felt it.
Yeah,
I've never.
They show
had
her injury, and it's like, ugh.
It's
not like gruesome. Like, it's not like.
No, it's not. There's
no
blood. It's
not like a bone popping out or blood or anything.
No.
But like, it's one of those things. Like, when you imagine it and you see it, it makes you like your bones shiver a little bit because it's so real. Like, you're like, ugh.
I feel like they did such a good job of making it look like that's exactly what that type of injury looks like, that I felt it in my knee. I've never had a knee injury before, so I felt it in my knee in the movie. There was like, oh god, I need a replacement. Come, somebody save me. Just the fucking. Ugh. Anyways, continue.
Yeah, no, it's chilling. So she becomes his coach after her career falls apart due to a career-ending injury, and through the drama that they live through as kids, they become closer and they get married, and he becomes a big star. He is one of the best in the world at what he does. Yep. But again, the story takes a span of 13 years in the sports world. If you hit 30, you're old. So he's about, I think, 31, 32. So he's on the back end of his career. And Art is starting to become accepting of this. I think he's also coming off an injury, which again you're very prone to later in your years
They never
because
really get into
bones are
what
more
his
brittle.
injury is either.
Yeah, they don't get into his injury, so I guess but it's important to the story, but not what it was. It wasn't important, but it's important to
He
the
had
story.
those things. He's wearing
So he's
those things
trying
the
to,
whole time.
yeah.
I don't know what they are.
So he is trying to do his comeback. He kind of thinks he's done. He lived his life. Now he has a child. He has money coming from different sources that aren't tennis. He kind of is just like, my competitive edge isn't there. My skill isn't where it used to be. But Zendaya's life is tennis.
Right.
And forgive me, I'm calling her Zendaya this entire time. It's hard not to when you have a star that big. I don't remember her name at the moment. Tashi. So Tashi's life is tennis. Art liked tennis. He loved tennis. He happened to be good at tennis because he worked hard at it. Tashi's life was tennis.
Yeah.
And so she kind of lives vicariously through him.
Well, she says it at one point early on too with, I wish I had an injury that I could have gone back and played.
Yeah.
So like that's the key reference to his injury, is that he was injured. He stopped playing for however long, but now he can play again. He can return. And she sounds like she kind of resents that.
So he is ranked like within or around the top 100, which is a big deal in the tennis world, because that qualifies you for the big opens, to where you could, do the Australian Open, the U.S. Open, all those big tours that basically give you giant championships, or what they would consider championships. But he can't cut it. He can't move through the rankings. He can't beat the top guys. So Zendaya puts him in a challenger. A challenger is a lesser tennis match where your guys not in the top 100 usually aren't going to be there. Anybody at that point can show up to whatever match they want. They're going to get in. But it's usually for your guys within like that 300 range, guys that are trying to qualify. They're trying to move up.
Because if
so
they win a
basically
challenger, they can get into a qualifier.
Yeah, they'll move up in ranking and they'll go into qualifiers. Which also, again, I'm not a huge tennis head. I know a little bit about it just because I pay attention to sports, but they do a very good job of keeping you included in this movie and keeping you up to date and make sure that you know what's going on, even if you're not a tennis fan. They do a very good job of it.
Yeah.
Everything that's going on.
Don't have that knowledge, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh yeah, I think I understand tennis. Not at all, but for what I needed to understand in the movie, I understood. They really did bring you in and like, yep, this is what you'll need to know. This is how it works.
So she puts him in the challenger. He doesn't really want to do it. He feels like it's kind of beneath him, but she's like, you need to beat somebody. You don't have confidence. These guys are whooping your ass around the court. Yeah, so you're gonna beat up on some guys in a lesser territory. At this challenger, which might have been planned, might not have been, is his ex-best friend / his wife's ex-boyfriend / his biggest rival and ex-teammate,
and
Patrick,
possible
who is
fling. They got a weird relationship too. Like they definitely
bromance gone too far. I don't know.
Listen,
but either way, Patrick is there, and the story with Patrick is he was the better tennis player. They were doubles champions, but I believe he was also a singles champion as well. He got put right onto a tour straight out of juniors. He was supposed to be like the next coming. He wasn't like Tasha where he was getting a deal before he even stepped on a real tour, but he was the real deal to where he was gotten put on tour without going the college route. But his skill didn't match his work ethic, or at least that's what they say. And his natural talent didn't last him very long. So he very quickly kind of fell through those ranks, and it became the washed up old tennis player that, he still loves the game and he's trying to play and do what he can and win a title, but, he's not making money. He's not winning matches.
But like because, you said, I mean, he's also...
People try harder, and he didn't.
And he's the same age as them, and like you said, you hit 30, 31, 32, like it's time to throw in the towel. It's time to just call it a day. And but he insists he's got one more good season in him.
Yep. which is the opposite of Art says he's done. And again, their paths were different, where when Art started to rise to the ranks and become one of the best in the world, it was kind of already when Patrick already fell off. Like his prime was when he was
Well,
like
and
19
this
years
is
old,
this
while
is a
Art came into his
little
prime when he was like 25.
this is a little spoilery, but there's one line they have a conversation. It's set in the modern day, and again, I think the movie does a great job of going back and forth between where they were and how those moments led up to where they are. But there's a great scene in the modern day when Art is talking to Patrick, and he hits him with, "This is where you live. I'm just stopping by," and talking about the Challenger in this small fucking town, like, and he's like, it doesn't mean anything to me. Like, this isn't. We're not on the same level
Yeah.
anymore. We haven't been for a long time.
Yeah.
And just fucking great scene. There were so many great scenes in this movie, though. That was my biggest thing is every fucking moment just was like the moment. It felt like.
Yeah. So now that we have you guys kind of caught up on the story, we won't get too much more into it. I'm sure things will come up as we speak on the other things, the intangibles of this movie. What I loved about this movie was it's a very lully movie. Like, at the end of the day, it's a sports movie, but it really is a movie. It's a drama. It's about a love triangle. There's a lot of lulls that can happen in a movie that's paced like that. The thing that Challengers does very well is that it keeps you intrigued into a non-action story. It keeps you on the edge of your seat. The writing that they have for these characters and the acting job that follows it is truly magnificent in the way that the pauses that they take, the moments that they have, the way that they'll look at each other, the way that they'll look at the camera, the things that you can't put into words of what makes it so good is what was done so well in this movie, because it keeps your heart racing because you're wondering what's about to happen. And it leads you to know what's going to happen, but a pause in the sentence, which they do a lot. They do a lot of pauses, kind of sit back, sit in the moment. They allow you to kind of sink into what's happening. Has a big effect.
Tashi has it that one moment. It's in the trailer, but it's a much longer moment in the movie, where Patrick is like, "Hey, you want to come outside, have a smoke with me and talk?" She goes, "I don't smoke," and we're not talking. And then you get just him bouncing the carton and her trying to work, and then closes the laptop and gets up. Like nothing is said for that 30 fucking seconds as we just watch her, like, and we have that moment. How many times are you, like, in real life, have you had somebody talking to you like, yep, are they gone yet? Like, are they still, like, okay, we're doing this, all right, let's go. It felt real. A lot of it felt real. That's what it is.
Yeah, these characters, especially with the relationship that they have to each other, everything felt so intimate and suspenseful, and it felt so real, and which is what I like about this movie. I saw this movie with my girlfriend, and she loved the movie because it kept her on the edge of the seat, but she hated it because she felt like all the people were shitty. I agree that all the people were shitty, but that's why I liked it. Like, it's
the reality of
that's real life.
Yep.
Like, you and your friend are chasing the same girl, and you kind of try to snake each other to get there. You guys do crazy shit, and you're on each other's side, but you're fighting with each other at the same time. And then she is probably the most manipulative one of them all, and they don't see it. And then, like, Patrick and Tashi's relationship is so fiery and passionate and toxic. Like, it's intoxicating. Like, you can't help. Like, again, we're gonna try to stay away from spoilers, but the scene in the dorm,
the before her
when
match,
it's him and her in the dorm, before her match.
Oh yeah, great fucking scene.
It is intense. Like, so I don't know if they were about to fuck
both
or fuck each other up. Like, both. It is so close to everything, and it's like every encounter that they have, and then you find her encounters with Art, and then they're just so sweet, and they felt so passionate, and you
can tell where things are going, though.
Intimate, like they felt like very close knit, while they felt like they were at each other's throats, and it was intense, and it felt, again, real. Like, the way that they portrayed these characters was fucking phenomenal.
And let's talk about the scene, because everybody, like, it's unavoidable, but she when they first go, when she goes to their hotel room, okay, and it's in the trailer, when she leans back, like she's kissing, making out with both of them, and that she leans back and they're just kissing each other. And that's what I mean of like, but at no point do they then push each other away when they find out. When she's like, all right, I'm going to go, they're not like, oh, bro, what? Like, they don't do all of that. It's just like, oh, okay. You know what I mean?
Well, they're
They're
confused at first. Like they gave her the look, like, wait, were we just doing that? Like they didn't realize that she was gone, and then she just sitting back watching with a smile on her face. Like
yep,
she's so manipulative and sadistic. It's oh my god, it's fucking phenomenal because she's living rent free in these guys' heads. Like it is
absolutely,
insane.
absolutely. I I have to say too, this movie gave me anxiety towards the end, in the similar way that Uncut Gems did, but in the best way possible. Different in the sense of like in Uncut Gems, like Adam Sandler's a terrible person, and every decision he makes, you're like, "What? You're dude, you're a fucking idiot. What are you doing? Like, you finally got the money, and you're gonna just bet it all, okay?" Like, it's just but the ending of this movie gave me a similar sense of anxiety, but I loved it. And there's a moment that I really don't want to spoil for anybody, but if anybody who knows films or studies films or movies, and if you know the phrase Chekhov's gun, if you understand what that is within movies and scripts, be on the lookout, because towards
The
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 end,
callbacks in this thing is nuts.
yeah,
Callbacks in general
yeah,
in this movie are crazy. They really do use that rule that if you see it in Act One, that was just this is what Chekhov's
there's
gun
gonna be a
is that
payoff.
if you see a gun, yeah, if you see a gun in Act One, you're gonna see it in use in Act Three. Like
Yes,
there's like everything counts, so pay attention is
it
basically
has to
what
matter.
that
Yeah,
phrase is for the people that don't know. Um, and they use it throughout, whether it's the words that they say, the actions that they have. They almost always get called back to at a later date, and it's so much fun, especially because again, it's time jumpy. You know, you're
yep.
going back, you're seeing them in high school, you're seeing them in college, you're going back to the match, you're going to see them in their pro careers before then when they were younger, and back and forth and back and forth. So it's really fun
And
because yeah, oh my
I
god,
will say some people didn't like the ending. I heard that was some people's biggest complaint, was like the ending, which wasn't
that
great, but I loved it.
well, now we're here. So I can get into my complaints, which isn't many. Again, this is a fantastic movie. Don't knock what I'm saying here. I only had two complaints, and we talked briefly about this off camera. The ending felt not anticlimactic because it had you on the edge of your fucking seat,
Mm-hmm.
but it felt like a finish too early because it was a good end for a sports movie, but for the drama that was building, there was no real resolution. And I know you don't completely agree with me here.
I
Um,
don't.
because the final scene is back to the tennis match, and it's really them playing tennis. But because of all the story that you know before then, it's a lot more than that. And then the things
There's
that you're going to
so
see if you
much.
go and watch this
There's
movie,
so much more.
it's so much more than it's
It's
so
not
much more
just
than that.
tennis.
It's not just tennis. Um, but and it just it ends with a tennis match. And I feel like there isn't a super real payoff with what these characters are going through. That is one of my only complaints. The other complaint that I really had was, again, it's very time jumpy, and it does a pretty good job of it. But at some point, they time jump to where, because they don't really do anything too crazy to signify when you're in different time periods. When they're younger, like they have longer hair, they don't have facial hair, like
Yep.
they don't have facial hair.
Well,
They
normally it
just
pops up on the
they
screen
look
and it'll
younger.
say like
Yeah, yeah,
eight
it'll show
years
you,
or
but then
whatever. But
it'll jump forward and go back to it, and it's not going to keep showing you
right, the
that title
date.
screen because that's monotonous. So it doesn't do that, but then you know because like, oh well, she had short hair in this, but then she has long hair there, so obviously this is when she's younger. She's still playing tennis here, so obviously she's younger. There's a lot of different cues, but at some point it jumps to a challenger in Atlanta. It's the first time that Art and Patrick face off from each other since Art was in Stanford and Patrick was on the tour when they were younger. So it's the first time that they meet, but it's 8 years, I think. But they look the same as when they do in the
Yeah,
present day. There isn't too much of a change in what they look like. So after that initial title card, when they flip back and forth, it gets a little confusing to know what's happening in that day
and in
and what's
that
happening
particular
8
like
years ago in Atlanta.
sequence, they're jumping back and forth a lot. I do agree with you. They
jumping back and
are.
forth a lot. So
Yeah.
it's a little messy. I wish they would have had some kind of camera trick or something to signify that like the time was different. Like, you know, some people put on a different lens, they might change the lighting a bit, kind of give you a different feeling or a different aura for when you're in a time jump situation. So I wish they kind of did that just for that reason, where it got a little convoluted. But other than that, again, I really don't have any complaints about this movie.
Yeah. No, I loved it, and I think again, and I can't stress this enough. I say it all the time, and I will continue to say it until people start doing it. Go see this movie in theaters. Do yourself a favor. Watch it on the biggest screen you can with the best sound system with zero distractions. That's how movies are meant to be watched. That's how we're supposed to intake that information. Do yourself a favor and watch it in theaters because
Yeah,
it's incredible. Like, and also
it
the
is. It
final
is
tennis
incredible.
match with the way that the camera, it's like the
That's what I
camera
was about to
is the
say.
ball.
Yeah, since
It,
I just gave you my gripes, I will say my favorite part was the cinematography of this movie.
yeah,
The shots that they have, like this isn't spoilery because this is just camera shots. Like they'll shoot you down from above the court, and then they'll shoot you from under the court as if you are on the
you're
court. So you're looking up like
underneath
a glass,
even. Yeah.
like a glass floor.
Yep.
So you're seeing like a translucent
And
tennis
then you
court, and you're
see the
seeing them playing
ball,
over
and
it.
you are the ball as it's getting hit back and forth,
Yeah,
and it
at some point you're the ball. At some point you're from the audience, which is a cool thing because if anybody knows tennis or sees a tennis match, the audience is always, because it's a very small
and
stadium.
that
The ball moves at 130 miles an hour, so you're always looking back
I
and forth from
have to
other sides because it's
say,
always from one end to the other.
what a great way, because you don't need to see. You already know. You know Art's here. You know Patrick's here. So you don't
Yeah,
need to see them playing. So it's great watching the audience just.
yeah.
And what's also awesome in that is the moments that Zendaya is not doing that as the
Not look.
audience,
She's the only person, because again,
or
if you look at a tennis match, that's what the entire audience is doing.
the
They're
entire
always
time.
constantly, because you have to
But
follow the ball.
there's even at one point Zendaya, and this is early on when we like see them playing, because the tennis match is the main focal point of this. When everybody else is watching the ball, she is looking in the opposite direction. So she's watching them kind of
She's watching
setting
them.
up
Yeah,
and not the ball. So it very, and it's little things like that that are great storytelling, like elements.
yeah,
It just incredible.
yep.
Go see the
Now,
movie.
like I said, we have, yeah, go see it. It's a great movie. Fucking, I give it like 8.5 out of 10 minimum right there. Like I said, I got a couple gripes, so it ain't perfect, but it's pretty up there, especially for the genre that it's in. But again, we have a shit ton of movies here, so we're gonna keep moving forward. The movie out here that I saw, Ray didn't get a chance to see yet. Hopefully, he will. It's a pretty good movie,
No, I
Ministry
didn't.
of Ungentlemanly Warfare. Um, which I'm not gonna sit here and tell you that it was like the most spectacular movie I ever saw. It was a good movie. It was a fun movie. It's a fun watch. It's a good big screen watch. Um, Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare is based off of a true story. Um, During World War II, the British military had to compile a force that could not be on record, could not be associated with them, would lead whoever was on this task force to be put to jail or death because they would not be have any ties with the British government at all. But they needed things to get done, and they needed it to be done in a way that you have to be very good at what you do, and what you do ain't pretty type of way. So the main star of this movie is Henry Cavill. Um, he's a phenomenal actor. He surprises
Yeah.
me every fucking time I see him, because it would be so easy to typecast this guy, and he's so much more than that. So he plays a lot of crazy roles. I mean, what movie did we talk about him on here before? Argyle. He was just in
Yeah.
Argyle, which we talked about
A lot of
earlier in
fun.
the year. Yeah, a lot of fun, fantastic project. Um, and again, in this movie as well, he fucking kills it. Again, the story isn't pretty. Um, Basically, in during World War II, one of the one of the biggest inventions at the time. Obviously, World War II. There was a turn of the century types of inventions going on. Warfare changed in a dramatic fashion in ways that the world had never seen before. And one of the strongest points of the German military was the Navy. You know, a strong Navy wins you a war. That's kind of the tale of time. The strongest Navy usually wins. And this was at the time where submarines were getting popularized and used in a military fashion. So the British boats really couldn't do anything because when you're getting shot at from underwater from a place that you can't see by a torpedo, there's not really anything you can do to stop it. And this team had to find a way to to either take away the supplies or take away the submarines for the Germans, so that the U.S. and other countries could then cross into the borders of Europe. The reason of this mission is why U.S. could come into the beaches of Normandy and France and have D-Day. Like, this insanity and what they did to stop the blockades of German submarines and ships was the reason that other countries outside of Europe were able to get involved into the war. So in this movie, Winston Churchill uh, compiles the task force underground. Hush Hush. Apparently, it's a true story that only broke a couple years ago. So Guy Ritchie which Guy Ritchie was the director of this movie,
I was gonna ask.
really jumped on this pretty quickly. So because they said at the end, they give you the comparison side by side with all the characters, which shows you that it was real. Yeah, like that was a never to be talked about again. Not involved with government story that only broke. I think it was like 2019, 2020. So it's a very fresh story. And again, it's not gonna say it's the best movie out there, but it's a fun watch. It's a very fun watch. It's brutal. The violence is killer.
That's a Guy
Because
Ritchie
again,
movie. I wouldn't expect anything less.
oh yeah, no, he's fantastic when it comes to just those fight scenes and the choreography and everything there. And again, like I said, these guys are really good at what they do and what they're doing. So it's brutal. They do some brutal shit in here. And I mean, there's really not too much to say. The vibe that I would say that you get from this is basically if Guy Ritchie did Inglourious Basterds. That's what it feels like. That is the vibe of this movie, because it's a history piece, but it's twisted. The characters have character, like they're very fun and out there, and but it has that Guy Ritchie twist on it. It's not like a Tarantino movie where he's making it a masterpiece, but it's a Guy Ritchie piece where he has a lot of fun with his movies, and he makes things very entertaining to watch. He gives you a lot of quippy one-liners and things that are fun to watch, and back and forth conversations that are meaningless but fun to hear. All in all, it was a good movie. I think it was worth the watch, especially on a big screen, because it is damn near blockbuster type of movie. Especially if you're a history buff, it's a fun way to absorb history right there, because again, it's a true tale. It gets into a lot of actual characters that were around at that time and the realness of what was going on in Europe at that time. So it's a fun way to absorb history. It's a good watch. So I recommend it very much.
That's awesome.
But speaking of brutal fucking movies, we both just saw Monkey Man.
Yeah, Monkey Man is an action movie that I was really anticipating. Dev Patel, who stars, wrote, directed, produced this movie, really said, I want to do an action movie, and Hollywood wasn't casting him in one, so he said, I'll do it myself. And fucking hats off to Dev Patel, because this movie was absolutely incredible. I heard before I saw it, I heard somebody say this movie is like John Wick if John Wick had an actual story with some meaning. And I love the John Wick movies, so I went in with talk shit about John Wick. What's wrong with you? I totally get what they mean. There is so much more depth to the story here in Monkey Man than John Wick has. John Wick has the mystery of the world that he lives in, whereas there's no mystery about this world. I mean, he uncovers a little bit of like how like corrupt it is, but that's not the point in Monkey Man. It's just it's so compelling. All of these people and how high up the corruption goes in the fucking fight scenes were.
Oh my god, dude, this has to be some of the best fight choreography I've seen. Like,
It's so
the
fucking good.
insanity of this shit, dude. Like, and here's the thing. I went into this. I watched it with my girl. The gore is really what tops it off, because the fighting and the choreography is fantastic. But it is a gory movie.
Yeah, they don't
To
shy
the
away from
fact
any of
that
it.
they don't shy away, but it also looks so real. Like, it's so much. Like, it is so insanely much, but
Yeah.
it looks so real. Like, we were watching it, and she starts to talk to me. And I'm like, don't talk to me. We're in a fucking movie theater. But then afterwards, I let her talk. She was like, oh, there was just so much, which she doesn't like that kind of shit. But, she was there to watch it because I was there. She was like, oh, doesn't it just like kind of remind you of like Kill Bill? And I was like, no, and I'll tell you why. I was like, that Kill Bill's a lot of blood and guts, and that's the point of it. But Kill Bill is over exaggerated to where someone's blood spews 10 feet out of their head for 5 minutes, and it's bright red. There's no texture to it. Like, it's you don't get skeeved out watching Kill Bill. No matter how much blood is in that movie, you don't like go like, oh, like it's not grotesque
No,
in
and
any way.
it's very similar to we talked about them showing Tashi's injury in Challengers.
Mhm.
And it's like, ooh, I felt that. Monkey Man was very
Yeah.
similar. The punches, the hits, the cuts, the every injury that he got or somebody got, I was like, oh god damn, I need to go see a chiropractor. My shoulder's hurting now.
Yeah, nah.
Like,
this shit was nuts. And like I said, it was a lot of blood and a lot of guts and a lot of all the, fun stuff that I like to watch.
yeah,
But what made it so different was that it was still practical. Like,
yes,
if you get your arm chopped off of your fucking body, blood does actually spew out. And it
yeah.
goes a little further than you might think. But it was dark, deep red, damn near black blood. It had texture to it. There was like tendons that you could see and like chunkiness. I'm sorry, I'm making someone squirm when they listen to this.
It was,
But
and it's
to me, that's a beautiful thing when it comes to gore. When you just
absolutely
dive so hard into it that you could not tell that it wasn't.
in all of the fight, like
That's fantastic.
every action scene. There's the action scene where after he's on the run, and he ends up at the brothel, and the guy just is like, you bring the cops to my place, and he just that fight like with the guy has an axe, right, and they're just like, it's brutal, and like people are getting fucking limbs hacked off, and there's the fight towards the end when he goes back to the ring later on, like the last part of the movie, and he just starts winning matches and taking down these fucking monstrous people. Like, they bring out fucking Andre the Giant, essentially.
Yeah. Oh my god. Yeah,
Guy
I
was
think that was the Elephant
humongous.
Man.
Yeah, and it was. Here's the other thing I do want to talk about, because again, there's a lot of substance in Monkey Man. It's not just a mindless action movie.
A lot of substance.
They mention it early on in the movie about them passing laws about the trans community that's living in this part of India and everything.
God, the callbacks in this movie again. We just talked about callbacks to Challenger. Callbacks in this movie, like, everything counts. Pay attention to what's happening, because something as simple as a news report in the background is a crucial part to the story.
Yeah, because I thought, oh, it's just the news. Like, he's just walking around, the news.
Yeah,
is playing,
just
whatever.
saying shit.
He's at a bar. I just thought, whatever. He ends up with this community, and how fucking beautiful that part of the story is when the action finally does take a backseat, and he's there with the leader of the community, who is trans, and it felt, there was something about it that really just like hit me in the heart, and I was like, this is fucking incredible. This is such good fucking storytelling. It's not just about him getting revenge and the action and the blood. There's so much more happening here.
It also comes to, because he goes for his revenge pretty early in this movie.
Yeah.
It could have been said and done right there, but it's a journey of him finding himself in his seek for revenge. Like, he is the lowest of the low. He has no money. He sleeps on a floor in a gym with like 10 other dudes. He's riddled with this guilt and anger for what has happened to him as a child and what
And his
happened to
mother.
his family. And
Yeah.
and he just wants to overcome all that. But in his seek to find revenge, he gets found by this community, and they kind of, and their whole thing is that they're outsiders. They're basically barred. If they were in like the city, they would be killed on spot. Like,
Yep.
they are damn near banned from society. So they just kind of went out damn near like in the fucking jungle, in the woods, and built a community there. And he finds solitude in them, and they take him in and they show him what it's like to let things go and to embrace what you have and to be the best that you can be, to provide for yourself, provide for everyone else around you. And it's a beautiful story that they're telling throughout this gruesome fucking tale.
Well, and what's also cool too is that even throughout that we have the mythological story that his mom told him growing up that is
Yes, so
running
this
parallel as
also,
well.
it runs parallel to a mythology within their, I guess, religion. I yeah, I guess
Hanuman.
religion. Yeah,
Hanuman is
yeah,
the monkey god that they she's telling him that story of how like he ate the sun and he was too greedy and whatever, which is
yeah.
also like, again, all of it is running
Which,
how greedy are the people at the top, and it like this story is significant to the current story we're
yeah,
watching him go through.
yeah. I mean, going through this movie, like, it's big on flashbacks as well, because it shows you this guy, it shows you what he's doing, but it doesn't give you the motive right away. You figure it out as he goes along because it gives you the flashbacks of what happened to him. Um, and so then it's interesting. It keeps you involved because you're like, okay, so this is cool, this is fun, and then you realize the significance because it tells you it in pieces as you go along, which is a very fun way to tell a story because it makes things in the beginning matter that you didn't know mattered. It makes things going forward matter more, especially because it's very fresh in your brain, since the story is going on. Um, Again, and very fun. And not only is it running back and forth between his childhood and his life currently, but then again, as you said, it's running parallel to an old story within their religion or within folklore, whatever you want to call it, of how parallel his life is working. So they're almost like telling you what's happening and telling you what's going to happen next, but you have to see how it pans out in the story in real life, which is pretty crazy, in what they do in this.
Yeah, and then
So
like everybody kind of has their moment. It's such a good movie. I can't recommend this movie enough for not just the action, but just the human element that they really bring in to, and it's an awakening for him. You know what I mean? Like, they
yeah.
nurse him back to health and retrain him, help him like get better. Like, all right, if that's the journey you want to go on, if this is the path you're choosing, you got to be prepared for it. You have to be ready for it. And know that, like, yeah,
And
you're
it's also
fighting
a
for you,
journey
but
for
you're,
them because he helps them as well, to where they
yeah,
start to stick up for yourself. Like, no, we're not going to be outcasted.
yep.
We're going to fight.
You're not
We're
just
not just
fighting
going
for
to run for
yourself.
solitude. Yeah.
Is also what is happening with him. It's not just yourself you're fighting for. It's way bigger than you. Um, I loved it. I left that movie and I was like, this is
Yeah.
fucking great.
Yeah, no, it leaves you with your jaw on the fucking floor. It's pretty fucking nuts. The only thing, again, because this movie's great, I don't have much complaints about it. And like I said, at the top of this hour, uh, movies are fucking back, dude. Like, it's nuts. Like, again,
Yeah.
we're on our third movie now, and we're about to keep getting into like three more of them, and there really isn't that much I
And
can complain about. Like, these are solid movies, and
I
they're coming
think
out back to back to back,
I
weekend
think
after weekend after weekend. Um, my only complaint was just the love interest felt weird. It felt forced, and it felt
yeah,
like they
a
didn't give
little
it any
bit.
time. That was the only thing, because he has like a slight love interest that she has like a small part that like comes into effect later, but it almost feels random. Like they didn't give it any time. They didn't really build like a rapport on screen. It was just kind of happening, and it felt like it was unnecessary. Like if you took her out
Yeah.
of the story, other than for like one scene, like it's she's really insignificant. So I don't know why they pushed that narrative,
Yeah,
but
it does. But and I will say on your note of like movies, like I think one of the other big things is like Hollywood needs to know when to take chances and do something different. Not everything has to be the same, but also let's stop typecasting people. Look, Dev Patel said, I can do an action movie, I can be an action star. And I think he proved it.
also an Indian action movie. For those of you guys, I'm not saying I'm an Indian expert, but just based on what I see for their culture and what their things and the buildings and all, like the area and the structure that they have was so cool and so perfect for an action movie. Like the way
Yeah,
that they travel through the city and doing all this stuff, it was like it was perfect for what they were doing. Like it was
everything is a
amazing. So
lot
yeah,
closer. It's not.
yeah. So like he runs into like he's getting chased down the street and he has to like run up on top of rooftops because everything is right next to each other. He falls through because the buildings aren't that structurally sound. He runs into a brothel at some point. It's just there. It happens. He's going through people like the setting that he has is awesome. So exploring different cultures for an action movie could be super beneficial, even for something as simple as just the setting can make a
Yeah.
huge difference in the thing that you're doing.
Well, and that's,
Um,
it's, it's, people don't real, a lot of people don't realize too when you're telling a story is that where the story is, the setting is a character in and of itself, usually. You know,
mm.
this city has a life of its own, and how does that
Yeah,
play
and it
into the
very much
story? And it
does.
does. Yeah.
The city definitely has its own character that plays its part in the story, which is dope. Now I know I saw Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare. We just talked about that. Um, you didn't see it, but you saw a movie that I didn't get to see. So I'm excited to hear about what you had to say about this one.
So I saw Civil War, which an incredible movie. The movie is about a civil war here in the States set in modern day. We are kind of fractured politically, and this movie takes that and really drives it home of, well, what happens when we become too fractured and people start taking sides. And when the movie starts, everything has already, a bunch of states have already seceded from the nation. They're no longer part of the United States of America. um, the civil war is already ongoing at the start of this movie. um, you have the Florida Alliance down south. um, there's a group of states that are one unit up in like the northern Midwest, and then you have the California and Texas, surprisingly, are the Western forces. And then you have the United States of America, which is New England, down to DC. And Nick Offerman plays the president in this, and he's awesome.
He's the best. I'm rewatching Parks and Rec right now. He
I fucking
is
love him.
the
He's so
best.
great.
I love him so much.
Um, this movie is told entirely from the perspective of reporters, from journalists, and not like fucking Fox News, CNN correspondents. These are real journalists who, Kirsten Dunst plays a journalist who has been overseas to active war zones and has covered wars and just some of the most like atrocious crimes you could think of. She's been there and taken pictures of and captured and sent back home. And she has one line in the movie where she's like, every time I went to another war zone and I sent my footage back, it was a warning to back home to don't do this. And here we are. But it's such a cool perspective to tell this story because it's like, yeah, there's a war going on and it's a civil war. And like most people, it's not about picking a side. It's not about who's right, who's wrong. Is it left or right? It's about telling the story and getting the news out. They're journalists and they're just trying to cover. The young journalist that joins them on this journey, they are driving down. So Kirsten Dunst and her friend are driving down to interview the president before the Western forces get to DC. This will be the last interview we could ever get with the president of the United States before the United States isn't even a thing anymore. We need to interview him. But the front lines of the war is happening in Charlottesville. They have an older reporter friend that wants to go with them. He wants to go to the front lines. He's been reporting his whole life. And they're like, all right, we'll drop you off in Charlottesville and we're pushing through. This young girl wants to join them, whatever, and the guy ends up letting her. So the four of them are driving down. Kirsten Dunst's like, if anything happens to her, that's on you. That's like, it has nothing to do with me, whatever. But she's kind of mentoring her on this drive down. And at one point she asked her, they see, so she goes, if those guys had shot and killed me, would you have photographed it? And Kirsten Dunst just looks, she's like, what do you think? She played such a badass in this movie. Like, it almost, the scenes of her being heartless in like Spider-Man 3 to Peter, just the entire time in this movie, totally fucking heartless. Okay, she's just one mean bitch, and I loved it. But again, it's just a really cool take on, if you're going into it to like, oh, I want to see like people fighting and like the war and see who wins. That's not what the movie is about, and you might be disappointed because it's a completely different like angle on the story, which I think works really well. Of them, you're going to see the war and you're going to see the atrocities and people fighting. At one point, Jesse Plemons is in the movie, which is actually her doing, because they're married and whoever was playing that character prior had dropped out last minute, and so she recommended her husband, and he's an incredible actor. So he came in and he just fucking crushed it. And at one point he asked them, he has all of them sitting there and he's like, well, what, listen, we're just Americans. We're Americans. And he goes, yeah, well, what kind of Americans are you? And like, that's the thing. And I think what it also drives home, that for people that, not to get too political, but it's hard with this type of movie, is that like, yes, the US is polarized and everybody has their own views or whatever, but calling for a civil war or whatever, like, you have to realize that you're fighting your own people and you're fighting your own family. And like, it's not the way people think something like this would happen. We are extremely lucky that like the last war fought on American soil was the Civil War. Oddly enough. So like, we don't have the memory or anything to call on of like, how bad is a war? Pretty fucking bad.
Yeah. Well, I will say, my question to you, which you're already kind of hitting on, did anything, again, because I didn't see the movie, did anything for you in this movie felt real or feel relevant? Because
yes,
obviously in the last decade, there's been a climate of people saying the U.S. is going to go to a civil war. I don't really fucking believe that.
no.
But, that's the climate of what people say, like, we've never been so divided. That's not true. We had a literal civil war. Not the point. But, the climate and how people talk about what is going on within the country nowadays. Does anything that you saw in that movie feel real or relevant to real life?
Absolutely. I think one of the things that like is the understanding that when things like, if something like this were to happen, you don't know whose side you're on or how things are going to turn. At one point in the movie, they're driving their car and they are driving and there's a body in the middle of the road. And the guy driving is like, I'm going to push forward a little bit. And they drive, and then all of a sudden, gunshots, right? A sniper from one of the buildings out in the back, a house, right? And so he pulls up quick, he drives up, they all kind of get out of the car and they duck. And as they're now on the ground and they're hiding, there's two soldiers that were in camo, right? Now, whether or not, and this is some of the stuff, it's ambiguous, right? Because are they wearing camo because they're U.S. soldiers or whatever? Who knows? But they're sitting there and they're in camo. And again, these reporters they don't have a side. But the guy's sitting, he's talking, there's a sniper, and then the guy looking through the lens for the sniper to tell him, like, where the guy is. And he's like, yep, nope, we've been pinned down here for hours. The guy in that house is really good. Who is he? Don't know. Where is he? Don't know. Well, who gave you the orders? Nobody gave us the orders. There's a fucking war. This is what's happening. A guy in that house is trying to kill us, so we're trying to kill him. That's it. And then the sniper's like, can you guys shut the fuck up? And then he takes the shot and he's like, I got good news. And then they're back in the car and they leave, and it's just like that moment of like, just a guy, he's trying to kill us, so we're going to try and kill him. That's it. That's not going to be fun. That's not fun at all. I don't want to live like that.
No.
I think if you watch the movie, and I think because of the perspective of it, it gives you the reality of something like this wouldn't be good, and it wouldn't be fun, and it would benefit almost no one. If the U.S. splintered like that. So, and I think, again, even that line of her saying, every time I went to a war zone and I sent photos back and I sent stuff back, it was to tell them not to do this. And she has a lot of flashbacks of her in these other war zones. So it's not just set in the U.S. Like, it has quick flashbacks of her watching people being lit on fire over in other fucking places and shit. And she's, dude, she's this fucking close as people are just getting shot and murdered and killed and stuff like that. And, you know, in your mind as you're watching, you're like, damn, why the fuck doesn't she do anything? But what is she going to do? How is she going to stop that? She's just going to end up dead like them. So what she can do is record it and get the story out there. So it's definitely, it hits hard of like, there's some fucked up shit going on in the world. And, try to be better, I guess. It's rough.
Sounds nuts. I should give it a watch. There's still more movies coming out, so watching everything is very difficult, which is why sometimes we have to divide and conquer like this, where I watch one movie, he watches the other. And if you guys haven't already been able to tell by listening to me talk about a movie and listening to Ray talk about a movie, he is so much better at remembering names, characters, lines. Fucking, he just spit like probably 20% of this movie's dialogue to you guys. And I probably couldn't tell you one line from my fucking movie. I can just give you my opinions.
You couldn't remember Zendaya's character's name in Challengers, and I just gave you half the dialogue from Civil War.
That's just who we are. That's his actor's brain going into overdrive right there.
As I watch the movie, 100%. I'm just lines. I'm like, give me the dialogue. Give me all of that.
Quotables. Let's go. Come on.
Yep.
Because
I'm going to work tomorrow and I'm doing that. Yeah. I'm going to start quoting the movie that nobody else saw to them. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Well, what kind of American are you?
All right.
What are you talking about? Why are you asking me that?
All right. So I got a little game for us here because on the back half of this episode, we got a couple horror movies for you. So if you're a horror buff, stick around. We have some really fun shit to talk about. Actually, a movie that we saw together, which is a rarity for us because, as you see, you know, if you're watching this and not just the audio version, we're not in the same place, and it's not often that we are in the same place. So very excited to talk about that. But first, leading into it, we got a little game. Here's what we're going to do. I have an iconic role played by an iconic actor. Iconic can be used loosely. I think it's pretty iconic. I think it's a fantastic performance. Okay. I'm going to have a list of names, and you will have to let me know if you think that this actor could play that role as good, better, or not even close to what this performance was.
I'm concerned for myself. Okay.
I got a list of 5 names. We're gonna run through them. At the end, you're gonna let me know who do you think, whether they're on the list or not, could come the closest or exceed what this person did in this role.
All right, so you're gonna give me all the names first?
No, I'm gonna give you.
We're gonna go one at a time.
The guy, and then we're gonna go one by one, and then at the end, you can let me know if you think anybody on that list is the guy, or if anybody comes to mind off of this list that you think would kill this role.
Okay.
And I just rewatched this movie, and it reminded me how good of an actor James McAvoy is in the movie Split, which is not an easy role to play when you have to play somebody with 23 different personalities.
Fucking great movie. I'm afraid of the names you're going to give me.
Great movie. All right. Johnny Depp.
Absolutely. I think Johnny has the capability.
You think Johnny Depp
he can
play 23 different personalities?
Absolutely. I think he's too old now to have played that character.
Well, okay, so these names they don't have because that movie came out a couple years ago, whatever. Which hopefully we can turn this game into more of a regular segment for you guys. But you're gonna take these guys in whatever heyday you feel like. If you want to
Yeah,
pick them when they're old, young, prime time,
think
whatever it is, you make that choice.
I think Johnny absolutely could. A younger Johnny definitely could have played that fucking character. We've seen him do it. He can morph into somebody and just I think Johnny would kill it.
Yep. Bill Skarsgård.
I don't know. I think
He has the intensity.
he has the
But
intensity.
does he have the capability to have that range to switch on and off between the people?
That's what I mean. You know what? I don't know. I think he has the capability, but I don't know that I could say for sure that he would kill it or do it. But I don't think he can't absolutely not do it. Movie I need to go see soon is Boy Kills the World, which is him, and he doesn't talk, and he has like a more childlike persona. Depending on my thoughts of him in that, because that's the other thing is that James McAvoy plays like a little kid in Split. You know what I mean? So it's not just playing all these characters that are okay. There's all these different personalities. They range in age and gender. So I think I don't know. I don't know that Skarsgård. I think he could rise to the opportunity.
Do you think he could be on par with James McAvoy?
I don't know. I don't necessarily think so. I think he would rise to the occasion, but I don't know if he could really nail it the way McAvoy did.
And because I didn't ask you, do you think Depp is as good as McAvoy, or do you think he could probably do even better than McAvoy?
He's definitely going to do as good, if not better. Johnny Depp holds a special place in my heart. So
this one I think is going to be the tripper for some people. Leo.
No, I don't think he could do it.
That's the answer that I thought you'd have.
I don't think he can do it.
To me, no. I think it speaks. No matter how good you are, there's some roles you're not meant to play.
No, and Leo is a fantastic actor. He's phenomenal, and I think Leo can do almost anything, but I just don't see him as this character. And maybe it's because he's too famous. He's too big. And he doesn't really lose himself. Like, even you watch a movie and you still, that's Leonardo DiCaprio just being attacked by a bear. That's Leonardo DiCaprio just getting high. That's Leonardo DiCaprio on a sinking boat. It's just Leo. That's just Leo being Southern and racist. He's a phenomenal actor, and I just don't see him playing that character at all. No.
All right. Tom Hardy.
No, he's too.
No,
I don't think so. I would absolutely hate to have to watch Tom Hardy just do Bane 23 different ways. That just sounds terrible to me.
All right, Tom Hardy's got some good. He's got some good roles under his belt.
I immediately went for the jugular. I was like, I'd hate to see that. No, he does have. Well, not well. I would hate to see him flip between doing Venom and Bane for 23 different people. That sounds terrible to me, and I don't like it. Like it.
So we had a no on Tom Hardy. Last one here. Jared Leto.
I think he could do it, but it would be weird. And I don't know that it would actually be good. I think he could do it, but I don't know that it would be good. I don't know that it would be good. I think he could do it. He would be weird. Like he would. I don't see him playing the kid role. Like, he would still just be weird about it.
I think the kid would be difficult, but I could see him playing the maternal figure, the woman. I can see him playing the fashion designer. I can see him playing the weirdo that's real skeptical and like.
Yeah, but gross. I just some of those like. I can't see him playing the Beast. I don't think I could see Leto playing the Beast. Yeah, no, I don't know. I think he could, but just not well. Not as good.
Just not to the par of McAvoy.
No, not to the par of McAvoy.
He might be able to pull it off, but it's not that iconic when he does it.
No.
No. All right. So I think I already have the clear-cut answer for what you're going to say here. But who on this list, or off of this list, do you think has the best chance of replacing McAvoy in this role and just killing it?
Make this movie 30, plus years ago, Gary Oldman.
It's a good one. I wouldn't even thought about it. That's a fucking good one.
Because he's somebody. The issue with again, Johnny also suffers from like the same thing as Leo. It's Johnny Depp. You watch it and you know it's Johnny.
Mm-hmm.
Even with younger Johnny Depp was hot and people loved him. You know what I mean? Like, it's just you're not Gary Oldman. You might recognize, like, I kind of know that guy from somewhere, but most people don't know his name. Gary Oldman, just for everybody that's listening and that don't know, Gary Oldman is your favorite actor's favorite actor. Okay? Let that sink in. Everybody talks about who's the greatest in the industry, and it's Leo, it's Denzel, whatever. When other actors are going to talk about who their favorite actors are, Gary Oldman's up there on that list. And I implore you to go through his filmography. He's going to be on a ton of movies that you didn't realize, like, oh, that was him. Like, yeah, that's him playing Commissioner Gordon in the Nolan Batman movies. Yeah, that's him playing Winston Churchill. Yeah, that's him playing the villain in The Fifth Element. That's him in the Harry Potter movies playing Harry's uncle. So, like, I think he's such a good actor and can play all these different roles, and he can morph, and he doesn't have the big enough name or the commercial name. Like, McAvoy's bigger now. At the time, McAvoy wasn't this, like, huge star that it didn't take away from the fact that he was playing all these different.
Yeah, I want to say Split was right about the time where he really got that success. I know it was in high school when Split came out for sure. So it's probably around that same time that he went into the X-Men franchise where he really built that name for himself.
Yep.
But yeah, no, I think you're right. I do think you're right. I think he would kill it.
And I will say, I'm actually intrigued. I would love to see Skarsgård play a character like that. I would love to see the opportunity, him giving the opportunity to really play something that's like that. Because I think he does have the range. It's just a matter of if he can actually go there. So
now the movie Split is my shit. I love that movie. I just rewatched it. It reminded me how good it was. It's my type of horror to where it's not jump scary, but it's intense. It's got a cool story. It makes you just think and get surprised and have moments and not just, scare you for the sake of scaring you. And that is what our next movie has in common with it. Late Night with the Devil was a movie that we actually got to see together. And what a fucking ride that was.
It was one of the coolest horror movies. And again, we've talked about cinema being back and there's a return. I have to say, A24 helped a lot with different types of movies and stuff like that coming out. A24 does a lot of really good, indie projects and, giving people a chance and a voice to tell their story that's not just all the big names in Hollywood. Shudder has been putting out absolute fucking banger horror movies lately. And this was one of them. It takes place in the 70s. And for those that don't know, like late night television, it wasn't all jokes and Jimmy Fallon and Kimmel and, back in the day. It was fun, but they actually interviewed people like for things and had conversations about the things that they were doing. It wasn't just nonsense and games. It's because you called me out earlier that now I can't remember that guy's name. It's because you said that I remember.
Also, this movie's been out for a little bit. Again, since we've had some technical difficulties and trouble fixing the schedule, this movie isn't the freshest in our brain. It's actually the one that we watched the longest ago. It's still in certain theaters, it's still running a little bit select times and stuff like that. So it's still relevant and you can still go see it. You can also buy it on Prime. I'm pretty sure I just saw the other day. You can rent it on Prime already.
The fuck is his name? I'm looking it up. Jack Delroy is the host of the show, and he's basically in competition with Johnny Carson. He's trying to be the number one late night talk show host, not so successfully.
Yeah. So let's get into the meat and potatoes of this movie. Basically, Jack Delroy was a TV personality. Local, late night. Starts getting a big show. Starts making a name for himself. People love him, but he's not he's not top of the charts. The people that know him love him, but not a lot of people know him. That's kind of where he sits. And he gets caught in a lot of controversies as he rises through the ranks and also starts to fall through the ranks. And within that time, he meets a girl, becomes his wife. He loves her very much. She dies tragically
She gets
from an
sick.
illness. Yes. And then after that, he takes a break off TV. He goes into a depressive state. He eventually comes back. He can never really get that fun funk that he had that made him so popular. He is just falling in the ratings week after week after week. People are saying he's washed up. More controversies come out about him in the dark times of his life. And On a Halloween episode of his show, he calls it this special episode Late Night with the Devil, where he brings in some bad juju, I guess we'll say, by bringing in these actual
So
mystical,
as my
paranormal.
as my brain catches up with remembering the details of this movie, I want to say, surprisingly, because I didn't know this when I saw the trailers and I went into this movie, it's a found footage movie. And I think the way they handled it was really cool. At the top of the movie, it plays as this isn't the episode that aired back in the 70s, titled Late Night with the Devil. Not only is this the footage of the episode, but this is behind the scenes footage that has never been seen before of what was happening on set that day as well. So when they go to commercial breaks, you get to see what they're doing on set, and it's black and white, right? When they're on, when it's the commercial breaks, which is a really cool way of letting you know that, like,
that we're not rolling. This is behind the scenes. It's all, all that.
And to give you a quick little breakdown of like the bad juju that you mentioned, because it is some pretty bad juju. He was involved. It's speculated when the rumors start circulating about him that he was involved with the group Bohemian Grove. That I don't really want to get into too much because it freaked me out in the movie, because it is a real group. It is a real thing. Google it, look it up. Then you get a story about this little girl who survived being in a cult. Everybody in the cult, they set the house on fire when the police surrounded the house.
They set the house on fire,
and the little girl survived. He brings her in with her psychologist, therapist, whatever, who's been working with her.
She started out as her therapist, as she specializes in the cults and the paranormal, and she wants to learn about this girl, and she has a therapy degree, and then she becomes her caretaker as well. Because she grows fond of this girl and wants to take care of her and make sure she's okay, and feels like she's the only person fit to do so. With her challenges, which is basically this girl is possessed.
Mr. Wiggles.
Mr.
Wiggles. Terrifying. That's terrifying. That is a terrifying name.
The funnier the name, the more I'm running the fuck away.
No. Can you imagine years from now, you get woken up, Daddy, can you come check under my bed? Mr. Wiggles is under there. No. Actually, no. I can't. Because Mr. Wiggles scares me too.
You were actually going to burn that bed to the fucking ground.
Oh.
And I'm never stepping foot in there again.
You want me to go check under the bed? We're going to sleep in a hotel tonight. Go pack your shit.
Yeah.
And let's go.
I'm actually calling a realtor, and we're fucking leaving.
How long has Mr. Wiggles been under your
bed? Yeah, why are you now telling me this? You know your daddy's a bitch. Keep this shit a secret. Deal with it yourself. I'm not doing it. I'm not dealing with this.
Call someone else like a priest. Like, this was the wrong move. Where
Oh, dude, it's like I'm trying to think. In I think what is it? It's Scary Movie 2, where the priest comes in the room and the girl's head spins around. She like throws up. And he's like, "Oh hell no!" And he fucking runs out.
yeah.
That's
No,
me. That's
that's
me
the
in that moment.
reaction.
I'm like, "Oh,
Fuck that. Uh,
oh
so
yeah, fuck that." He fucking runs away. It's hilarious.
uh,
Uh,
so Mr. Wiggles is the demon, and again, a lot of practical effects. They did a really, really good job of making it feel like a late night talk show from the 70s. Like even
well,
the way it was filmed, it had that
yeah,
grain.
it's it's nuts because this movie it's not like a super scary movie.
No,
It's not The
it's
Exorcist. It's not
unsettling.
Paranormal Activity. Yeah, it's creepy. It's very
Mm-hmm.
unsettling. Like you watch it, and again, you mentioned the disclaimer at the front. They basically do it found footage, documentary style. Like they show you certain things with a tape over it, like someone describing to you events, and then they show you like the found footage of everything. Watching this movie, and again, they did a great job with that disclaimer and everything else that followed. It feels real.
Yeah.
You watch
Yep.
it, and it because of the way that they present it to you, you're watching it like, holy fuck, yeah, this happened. It didn't,
Like one of
but
those
like that, it
mockumentaries
really
on.
convinces you.
Mm-hmm. It's all. It felt
It
like
really convinces
how
you.
like a murder mystery. Like if you were watching like ID Discovery or one of those like true crime shows where it's like, yeah, we're gonna show you, and it's like they're telling the story, and they have like the real people telling the story, and then like the reenactment happening at the same time. Like it just felt real
Mm,
like that. Like oh, this happened. Fuck
yeah,
that. I never watched this
yeah,
show. But it's like yeah,
and
because it got pulled from the air.
the suspense building that it does, dude. The moments that it gives you of all these pauses and the articulation of these people, and the
Yeah.
moments that it lets you settle in, like so he brings he again Jack Delroy he, he's bringing on these people and they're oh my god it's hard for me to even to explain what's happening here. He brings on a guy that is
The magician, the
like one of those
psychic,
people.
the psychic.
Yeah, he can. Yeah, he's a psychic. He can like read your mind. I think there's like an actual name for this beyond psychic. But he's one of those people that'd be like, oh, he's a medium or something like that.
Yep.
Where he's like, oh yeah, like you have a brother with a J Johnny. Oh, he says he misses you, something like that. He's one of those people. Um, he ends up, I guess, coming in contact with his past wife is what they try to say, and like he's freaked out by it, but he's pushing forward because he kind of knows what's happening here, like, and he's kind of okay with it, like he's pushing the envelope of what's going on, and he knows he needs these ratings, and that's what he's gonna get, despite the eeriness that is all over this show. And then he brings in the magician that like he spoils all magic or whatever.
Yeah, he
To
doesn't believe in the occult and stuff like that, so he finds ways to disprove it.
Yeah. So he's on there, and then at some point, again, the lady with the little girl, that was, it again. It feels also real and so eerie, and what it shows you for these characters is nuts. And like you said, if this isn't in any way fact, and it in no way happened, unless it did, and they covered this up really well, maybe because that's how good this shit fucking was.
yeah,
That's how fucking good this was. Ooh, goddamn, almost fell. That's how fucking good this was, is that it feels that real, but there is basis in fact. Like events and like things are like there. Like the, I guess, group of which you named at the top of the show is a real thing, and there's real stories that don't sound too dissimilar from the things that they talk about in this movie. So again, that eeriness follows as well because it's not just make believe, and they do a great job of making you think it's more than not make believe.
yeah. No, it's in. it gets trippy, and I think one of the great things too is that the practical effects are incredible. Um, it's the when the guy towards the end does the hypnosis
Yeah,
and everything, and the
that
worms,
was a
nuts.
fucking
What a
ride, dude. That was
fucking
a crazy twist.
what a
Dude, I'm telling you, you're
fucking
in this theater and you will, because there's a lot of moments where like they talk a lot and there's yelling and there's things that are happening and it's like nuts shit, and then they like kind of let you sit in absolute silence at parts,
with it.
and
Yep.
you could like hear your own breathing and your heart beating, and it's the same way for everybody in that theater. Like the what it builds for you and lets you sit in is it's a nuts feeling.
Yeah.
Like it's crazy what they do, and the twist and the ride that it takes you on. um this is like my favorite kind of horror movie. Like I love horror movies. I got a couple, I don't know if you can see them, but I have horror movie posters all around this room, but not in the traditional sense. I'm not a big paranormal activity guy. I don't like a lot of that paranormal jump scare type
No,
of, like,
you
to
like
me
the
it always
slashers.
feels. Yeah, I like the slashers and I like the thrillers. Like I like things with that have more of a story, and they kind of like let your heart beat, and not just and let your heart beat the entire time,
Yeah.
not just sit in it, heart rate up, and then it drops back down.
Yep.
Jump scare, heart rates up, drop back down. To me, that's cheap horror. It's just, to me, it doesn't make good horror movies. It just makes for like kind of a fun time to sit in a basement when you're in high school and watch with your friends. But so this is my favorite kind of horror movie. Like it puts you in a place the
Yeah.
entire time. Even though then we're driving home, like we saw the latest possible showing of this fucking movie. We went to see this movie. It was like at least 10 o'clock when we got to the theater. There's like no one fucking there.
Yeah.
So we're driving home. It's like 12 o'clock, 1 a.m. And it is
Well, that's some of
eerie.
the
It was
that's
an
some of the
eerie
best.
drive.
When I saw The Witch, which was Anya Taylor-Joy, it takes place in some part of Massachusetts back before the witch trials even. And that's what the whole movie's about. I saw that movie the latest I could possibly see it. And then I hopped on a bus to go down to see you. And I saw the movie with AJ, and I was sitting on the bus, and like an hour into the bus ride, I just texted him like, so I completely zoned out just now, and I was thinking about the movie. I don't like this. I don't want to be thinking about this
Dude,
movie anymore. Because it's the witch is unsettling and it's creepy and it's terrifying, and I don't like that I thought about it for weeks on end. And that's like this movie does a similar thing of like it sits with you because it's not a jump scare. It's not just it's a and there's because a lot of it there's a reality behind it. Like I said, Bohemian Grove and all of that stuff. There's a reality here behind the story they're telling, which makes it feel more real. Just really fucking up your spine type of like.
It's. I mean, we just ran through 5 movies that I gave, 5, 6, whatever. How many movies we just talked about that I gave high praise to all of them. All came out this year, all within recent memory. Obviously, it's only May.
Yep.
This one might be my favorite one so far. This might have been my favorite watch of the year, which is going to be criminal because it's a horror movie and it's not going to get any praise when it's all said and done. But goddamn, it's got to be my, like, I hadn't had a feeling like that. Like Challenger gave me a feeling for a moment. Like you have to sit in it for a second and like let your jaw drop. Monkey Man gave you a feeling you have to let your jaw drop. Ministry was fun. It wasn't like that though. Like you saw it and you left the theater and you kept going about your day. But this movie made me think, sitting in the theater, walking out of the theater, going to the car, driving home. I was over by you, so going into my hotel room.
Yep.
Laying in bed, staring at nothing. Fucking
and just thinking about it. Yeah.
Just
and it's the last thing you want to think about.
Yeah, last thing you want to fucking think about. And like I said, Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare is literally based on a true story. That felt 10 times realer than that did. And it made me feel like it was a true story more than the real story.
Yeah.
So what it does, it was nuts. And again, it makes you sit in a moment for what is way longer than a moment. Which is, to me, what a great movie does to you.
Yeah, and it's not a happy ending. It's a horror movie. It ends pretty tragically. And it's dark.
And trippy as
Oh
fuck.
yeah.
Like, think about Donnie Darko, turn it up to a fucking 11.
Yeah,
That
it gets
shit
real
is
trippy at the end.
nuts. Yeah, it was like, it's just in disbelief because it comes out of nowhere. It's like boom, like it just fucking happens, and you're like, God damn, what was that? Oh my god, yeah, that shit's nuts.
Before we close out, there's one other movie that I saw that I want to mention. It's another horror movie, and I want to mention just because I had a lot of fun watching this movie. Completely other
Oh
end
wait,
of the spectrum.
really quick, I don't remember this guy's name, the main actor of this movie.
Paul. Is that his first name? Paul. Hold on.
You're my guy, so I got to go to you for this. Like I said, I can never remember shit. So he's my guy for that. Even his Google works faster than mine. So
His first name is not Paul. I'll tell you that. Where the fuck it's David. I don't know where the fuck I got Paul from. I was thinking of Paul Dano because his last name starts with a D, so that's where my brain went. David Dasmalkian. He played
I can't.
he played Polka Dot Man.
Yeah,
in the
Polka
Suicide
Dot Man.
Squad. Yeah.
Yep, he was a supporting cast in Ant Man as
Yep.
well. He
been in a ton of stuff.
I think
he's never really the lead.
Yeah, in Suicide. No, he's not the lead, but he is the lead in this. And oh my god, did he fucking kill it? I want to give that dude high praise. Like I said, not that he carried this movie. This movie was great all around. Like I said, I've had little complaints about every movie that we talked about. I have none about this one. And he killed it. Give this guy some leading roles. I get it.
Again,
he's not the leading role. He's not the leading man type. Like, you don't
but
see
it doesn't
him
matter.
and think leading man, but he has the fucking chops, man. Like he absolutely killed that. So
that's my thing. Start giving people the chance. Stop typecasting everybody. Dev Patel could be an action star. This guy can lead a fucking movie. They can all like it. It's. We have to break out of the tropes, and we have to let. And I think again, like it's just my actor's brain just saying, "We're actors and let us act. Let us play the part and let us do it." Because even like with the game, it's like, yeah, none of those actors really wouldn't have been able to play in Split. Could they have done it the way James McAvoy did? None of them would have done it the way James McAvoy did. But you got to give somebody the opportunity, right? Like, let them.
Like you said, Bill Skarsgård might be able to do it. You'll really know when he can do it when you give him the role.
When you give him the role.
That's how you know. When you give him the role is when you're really going to know. So yeah, dude, just the chops on that fucking guy, dude.
Yeah.
Like, high praise to him. He killed that. Give him leading roles. He's not just a supporting cast.
Yeah.
Anyway, you're about to go off about a movie.
I saw Abigail, which is a new horror movie that Universal put out. It's based on the story about Dracula's daughter. Like, so it is like an adaptation in a way. It's this little ballerina vampire. A group of people get hired, these hired guns, to kidnap this girl. They all use fake names. It's funny because the guy, Giancarlo Esposito's character, gives them, he goes, "You guys want names?" Like, the reason they don't use their real names is because if any of them get caught, they can't rat on anyone. He goes, "You guys want names? Fine. You're Sammy and they're all Rat Pack characters, right? You're the Rat Pack, right?" And one of the guys, Angus Cloud, is actually in this movie. This is the last thing he filmed before he passed. And he's like, "Why is he calling us rats?" Like, he just totally doesn't get the reference at all. And they kidnap this little girl. They don't know why they kidnapped her, whose daughter she is, but her father is rich and like they can hold her ransom, whatever. And then they find out that she's a little ballerina vampire and she fucks with them so much. It's absolutely hilarious. The movie I laughed way more than I thought I would. It was a really fun movie. Melissa Barrera she plays the lead. She was in Scream. She played the lead in the last couple Scream movies. It's just a ton of fun. Kevin Durant plays one of the characters. This isn't his first time doing a vampire thing. He was a main character on The Strain back on FX. Catherine Newton also plays like my favorite character in the movie. She's their hacker in the group and stuff like that, and so she's just hilarious because she doesn't hold a gun like they all do. There are like a couple of them are ex-military, one's an ex-cop. She's a hacker, and so like when the little girl's after them, I'm gonna give some spoilers for the movie. So here's my spoiler. Catherine Newton's character gets bit, and she's like, oh my god, what's gonna happen to me? Whatever. The next scene, they end up locking up the little girl in a cage, and she's like, well, what about me? Am I gonna turn? And the little girl looks at her, she goes, maybe. And Catherine Newton she said maybe, and she like breaks down, and it's the funniest fucking thing ever. She said maybe. It's just such a fun little fucking horror movie. Gory as all hell too. And the entire time all I could think was like, this is the second horror movie we've had in recent memory where the killer was a little girl. Megan came out last year, right? I think.
Yeah.
And all I could think while watching the movie though too was I miss the days of getting the random horror movie crossovers that we used to get. I want Megan and Abigail in a movie, and I want them to fight. I want the little AI robot to fight the vampire ballerina. Give me the days of Freddy versus Jason, Alien versus Predator. Bring it back. But then I thought, well, probably will never happen because like Freddy versus Jason almost never happened because they were different studios that own those characters. Alien versus Predator just got lucky. Universal owns both Megan and Abigail, so like I'm rooting for it even harder now. I need and they got to do it soon because they casted like little girls to play these people. So like that's going to be the funny thing is like Megan did really well. It is getting a sequel, but pumping out a franchise at some point they're going to have to recast. It's not like having Freddy, Jason, Michael where they're grown men.
She technically doesn't age. Yeah.
Right. And
also with Freddy and Jason, like you're so made up. Like
and the thing is,
you can like Jason has been like what fucking 10 people,
but it didn't work. It didn't work the one time that they've recasted Freddy, right? It wasn't the same. But that's also just
he's a much bigger talker though.
He talks
a
lot more, yeah. But Jason, Michael, they don't talk. Anybody could be underneath the mask. It doesn't matter as long as they're fucking 8 feet tall. Like they'll be fine. But it's similar to like Chucky's voice is iconic. I don't want anybody else to play Chucky. It's going to be really sad when somebody else has to play Chucky. Or even Tiffany in that franchise. Like, you know what I mean? That's Jennifer Tilly. Nobody else is going to be able to do that the way Jennifer Tilly does. So Abigail was a lot of fun. It was a cool vampire movie. I also just like the fact that vampires are back in the horror space and not just like Twilight and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like they've had a complete resurgence. The Last Voyage of the Demeter came out last year, which was another vampire movie. So it is cool to see that stuff happening. That's all I got.
Well, guys, we appreciate you listening to our rambles about these movies. Again, a lot of high praise, a lot of great movies, a lot of ones that are out, a lot of ones that we're looking forward to coming out soon. You're going to hear a lot more of these ramblings, and hopefully high praise comes with it. Like I said, movies are back, but we're not just going to be talking about movies. We just saw a couple great TV shows. Like he said at the top of the hour, X-Men 97 still going on. We should have gave you that episode. It was a great one. Things didn't work out. Sorry. Fucking hip-hop's crazy right now. Rap beef is going crazy. I mean, I don't know what's making more headlines, Drake and Kendrick or the Diddler. I'm not sure.
Listen. We're not gonna get into the actually,
Here's the
I'm
thing. This episode that you guys will never see
We'll
because
never
it had to
see.
get totally scrapped because of technical difficulties.
The diddler was brought up.
He kept
more
getting
than
mad
once.
at me. Yeah, he kept getting mad at me because I kept bringing up the diddler during the hip hop segments.
Well, and then at one point I brought up Puff, and I was like, God damn it! Now I'm doing it.
Now I'm doing it. Yeah, now I'm setting him up.
Yeah. No, I think Kendrick might have mentioned Puff actually at one point in one of his tracks. Did. Yeah, and I was just like, I don't think that's the hit you think it is. We can't be bringing Puff back. We gotta let that one lie for a minute.
Anyways, we got a lot of great content coming for you guys. Again, we got some crazy TV shows, crazy shit happening in the music world. X-Men 97 speaks for itself. I'm sure you guys are following that on socials.
Insane.
Let us know what other iconic roles should we tackle in this game? What other actors would you like to see? Who do you think could play what roles? Would love to hear your guys' take on this. If you saw any of these movies, let us know if you agree with us on how amazing most of these were. If you hate my complaints or if you love them. And hopefully you will tune in and join us next time where we have so much more news to talk about. We're so backed up. We have so much to say.
I have nothing else to add to that. I wanted to, but
all right,
my brain was going, make a P. Diddy joke, and I just don't want to.
Yeah, I was going to say, my brain, I have Diddler on the brain.
Yeah, I don't want to have Diddler on the brain. I absolutely
I don't want to have Diddler on the brain.
Absolutely don't want to have any of that.
Sometimes he just creeps his way in there.
Yeah. Creep. Anyways, thank you everybody for tuning in, and catch us on the next one.
See you.